Hello everyone and welcome to QQEvolution. In today's training video we're going to take a look at the utilities section, which you'll have access to from your dashboard on the left hand side here. The utilities section is where most of your system setup is going to occur. Everything from adding agents, CSRs, and users to setting up commission rules to adding system defaults is going to occur in your utilities section. We're going to take a look at this section in detail today, going over all of the pertinent areas that you'll want to make note of. If there are any areas that we breeze over, it's only because we cover them in more detail in a separate training video. I'll make sure to mention what videos you can find that additional information in as we go along. The first screen that we see here is your dashboard for QQEvolution, and as I mentioned, the utilities we can access on the left hand side here towards the bottom. So let's click in the utilities area to begin. Here in your utilities section, you'll always have access back to the dashboard in the top left from this very top toolbar. The other items on this toolbar are going to change depending on what radial buttons we are looking at or what other tabs we are looking at in the utilities section here. Currently, when I'm under the pop-up boxes tab, looking at the radial button for users, we have the option up at the top for user management. We will cover our online user management, our online account management section in more detail in a separate training video, so I'm just going to briefly mention that in this section here you can add additional users, agents, CSRs, and producers, as well as setting up their system permissions and preferences. So along the right hand side here you'll see all of the users that I currently have in my system, and we can see their default permission level. So a user is going to be somebody with their own login and password who has access to log into the system to work on different accounts. We're going to cover all of the radial buttons here in the pop-up boxes tab, and then we'll work our way to the right along the tabs at the top. So our next button down is going to be the agent, CSR, and producer list. This list may look similar to your user list. This is going to be anybody who you can indicate is an agent, a CSR, or a producer on a particular account in your system. So you may have users that have the ability to log into the system that may not necessarily be listed as agent, CSR, or producer. If I need to add, edit, or remove items from this list, you'll notice that the toolbar along the top now has the action buttons to do so. I can click Add, and I can type in any additional name to add to the list. We can click Done Adding when we're finished. We can edit any of the items on the list or delete the item. If I do click to edit, I'm simply going to be editing the name or the agency filter for this agent, CSR, or producer. You also have the ability to reset the list or to view the commissions for the particular producers on this list. We do cover commission setup for your agency and your producers in a separate training video, so when we come to topics of commission, I'm just going to briefly mention those. Our next bubble down here below the agent, CSR, and producer is for source. This is going to refer to your sources of business, referral, advertisement. You can add, edit, or remove items from this list in the toolbar at the top. And again, you have the option to reset the list. Sources can also be customized from within your online account management, accessible from the user management button here at the top when you're on the users button. Next, we'll take a look at our radial button for agency. This is where you're going to see listed all of your different agency office locations. You do have the buttons at the top to add, edit, and delete. However, if you are going to add, edit, or remove an office location from your list here, you would need to contact QQEvolution. If I do click on one of these options here, I'm just going to get a pop-up message telling me to contact QQEvolution in order to make any edits or changes to my agency office locations. You also have the option in the toolbar at the top for commissions and fees. If we click on the fees button, this is where we would set up our agency fees. And I can add, edit, or remove fees from this section. The commissions is where we can set up different commission rule configurations that we might need to apply to different companies or policies. Again, we will cover the commission setup and the fee setup in more detail in a separate recording. Lines of business is where we can add, edit, or remove from the lines of business that you have listed in the system. You also have the ability to reset this list to its default. If we do go to add a new line of business to this list, we can click on Add, and we could enter in the line of business and any accord description that might need to be associated with that line of business as well. Again, I can click Done Adding when I'm finished. and we can move on to the next option for coverage. Here are all of the different coverages that you have available to select from in the system. Again, you can add, edit, or remove items from this list or reset the list to its default values. If we do add an item to this list, we can enter the coverage name and enter which line of business it needs to be associated with, or we can leave the line of business association at all if it's going to apply to more than one. And again, we can click Done Adding when we're finished. Next, we have insurance companies. This is going to list all of your insurance carriers, your different writing carriers that you have entered into the system. Again, up top we can add, edit, or remove items from the list, and we can reset the list to the default. In the insurance company's radial button is also where you're going to set up the commission rules for each individual insurance company. Again, we can select commissions from the toolbar at the top, and we can view them in a chart or for this one company alone that we have selected. You also have the ability to just double click on the company that you wish to edit the commission rules for. Again, we will cover the setup of the commission rules and the company fees in more detail in a separate recording on commission specifically. And you have the fees option in the toolbar at the top, which will allow you to again edit your company fees. So we can add new fees to the list, edit or delete the existing ones. Next, we would have the button for financing. Here we can add, edit, or remove the different finance companies or finance options that we have available. So when you're on a policy screen and you're setting up a new policy, these are essentially going to be some of the drop-down options that you're going to see. There'll be a drop-down menu for financing, for the insurance company, for the coverage, for the line of business. So we're just adding or editing or removing items from those drop-down menus that we'll have available on that policy screen. The next button down is going to follow that same pattern. These are going to be optional coverages or additional coverages that you'll have the ability to select when you're on a specific policy. So again, I can add, edit, or remove items from the list or reset the list. And we can see down below the items that we currently have entered in our system as far as optional or additional coverages. Now, if we need to set up any commission rules that pertain to these optional or additional coverages, you'll have the commissions option here in the toolbar again. We can view these in a chart, and we can see the list of the coverages that we had selected here. We would be indicating on a 6-month or a 12-month policy, and for 1 car, 2 car, or 3 cars, for either the 6-month or the 12-month policy, what is the amount of commission that would be set to make here. I can edit to enter those specific values. Let's return back to our utilities section, and our next button down is for billing descriptions. So again, when I am recording a bill in the system, I'll have a drop-down menu for billing descriptions that I can select, and these would be the billing descriptions that we currently have entered into the system. Again, we can add, edit, or remove items from this list, and we can reset the list to its default values. The next option down is additional premium reasons for AP letters, additional premium letters. So when the system is generating a letter for any additional premium charges that need to go out to the customer, you can indicate what the reason is for that additional premium on their policy. And again, we can add, edit, or remove items from this list, and we would just click Done Editing once we're finished. Below that, we have the payment type options. Here we can see the different payment types that are available. So when we are recording a payment in the system, we can indicate how this was paid. Notice that we do not have the ability to add or delete items from this list. We just have the button to edit. And what the edit button does is toggle the visible column here. So you don't have the ability to remove items from this list, but if I know that I don't ever use MoneyGrams, for example, we have this marked as not visible. So that way, when we are selecting the payment type, this is not an option on the drop-down menu in our system. If we wanted this to be an option, again, I could come up to Edit, and I could click Edit, and the option here will change from No to read Yes. So now when I click the drop-down menu, we would see all of the items here that are marked with Yes. So the only one not on the list would be Money Order to Company right now. And at the very bottom, we have the list of MGAs and brokers that you have in the system. Again, you can add, edit, or remove items from this list to add additional MGAs or brokers. You can then further associate particular insurance companies to those MGAs or brokers. So I can see here under BB Broker in my system, we have 4 companies that are associated to that broker or MGA. If we go down to IB Green, we have a separate 4 companies. Now some of these companies you may be able to reach with more than one MGA. That's perfectly fine. In order to open up the configuration, I can either click on the option in the toolbar up at the top, or I can double click on the MGA in the list down below here. So we're looking at a Better Broker as our MGA, and I can change which MGAs we are configuring. But down below, depending on the MGA I've selected, I can see what companies are currently associated to this MGA, and I can see the list of all of my companies that I have available. And I would just select the company and click the arrow to move this company over as a company that is now associated with the MGA. You have the double arrows at the bottom to move every company off of this MGA at once. Aside from associating the companies to the MGAs, we can also create or edit the commission rules for these companies when they are going through the MGA. So you may have different commission structures set up under your insurance companies list here, but when you are reaching that company through this particular MGA, if you need to set up a different commission structure, you can set up a structure that is applicable only when the MGA and the company are selected on the policy at the same time. To do this, again, we have the commissions option up top. I can say for this company, show me the commission rules, or I can just double click on the company in the list to open up the commission setup page. Now again, we will cover the commission setup for your companies, your MGAs and brokers, your producers, the company fees, and the agency fees set up in more detail in a separate demonstration. So I'm just going to briefly touch on those. And that will conclude the pop-up boxes tab. Again, these are mostly the boxes of information, the drop-downs that you'll see in your system, so you can configure what items are going to appear on those drop-downs, and you can further associate things like commission rules to particular companies or lines of business or MGAs. The next tab over we're going to look at is for defaults, your system defaults. So here under the Defaults tab, you'll see some additional tabs pertaining to defaults that we'll go through in a moment. The first box here, or the first tab here, is for entry, and the first box also titled entry. This is going to list default address information that you can have populate automatically for you. So when I'm adding something like a new customer, if we want the default area code or the default language for that customer to be English, the policy period, we can default to an annual policy term. The city, state, and zip code, we can enter in default amounts that will pre-fill for us as well. Below that, we have options for accord forms. We can have the system add a memo after we print an accord if we check this box. And if we need to set up signatures, we can click on the Signature Setup button here. So here would be the signatures that we have the ability to add on our accord forms. If I need to, I can click Add New Signature, and I can browse my computer for an image to use. Now note that the file type for the images that we can use as our signatures is a bitmap file. You would need to have your signature image saved as a bitmap in order to upload it into QQEvolution. I can select the image I wish to use and click Open. And then I can give it a name and click OK to save that image. We would then see the image of the signature here, the name we had given it, and we can indicate if this signature is active or inactive. Any signatures that we have used on accord forms previously, we will not be able to delete. But if we don't want anybody using that signature moving forward, we can always mark the signature as an inactive signature by unchecking the active box. When we're finished setting up our signatures, we can click Close. To the right, we have email options as well. If you need to set up your email to work with QQEvolution, you can contact our product support department for assistance with this setup here. Below the email options, we have the data wizard when we're adding new accord forms. So whenever you're generating a new accord form, we can use a wizard that can walk you through the step-by-step process to pull the information that you need onto that accord form. You can also check the box if you do not want to see the introduction to that data wizard every time it starts up. And to the left of the data wizard, we have some options in a box here that just says yes or no above it. Basically, these are actions that you can specify the system to take or not to take under varying circumstances. For example, we can tell the system to ask for a specific policy whenever we're attaching images, so we know what policy they go to. We can tell the system not to send any additional premium to billing, basically not to create a bill for additional premium charges. letters in the system. We can tell Evolution to show us the tip of the day whenever we're starting up the system. We can toggle that on or off to show the premium grand total or to require a confirmation for any credit card payments. So these we can toggle yes or no. Below we can tell Evolution to look for any newer versions or any updates on a particular basis. We can select daily, weekly, or after each update becomes available. The next tab over under our Defaults tab at the way top is for letters, defaults pertaining to letters. Here we can specify the default receipt that's going to be generated for things like down payments, or agency bills, and we can control or edit the last receipt number. So you can set up your receipt numbering system here. You also have the ability to lock the transaction date if necessary, so that it cannot be edited. If we want to change the default letter that's being used for any of our receipts here, we can select from the drop-down menu, and we'll have the option to choose any of the RTF or HTML letters that we have created or customized in QuickWord, which is accessible from the dashboard. We do have a separate recording that covers how to set up and edit different letters in QuickWord, so we're not going to touch on that in this recording here. Below the box for letters, we have additional premium info, AP info, where we can say if the additional premium is more than a specific dollar amount, we want to use this additional premium finance letter, and we can specify again from our list of RTF or HTML letters. So we can select a default additional premium finance letter to be used if that additional premium is going to be more than the indicated amount here. And if we need to insert a percentage of additional premium as the down payment to be displayed on the additional premium finance letter, we can indicate that amount here. Otherwise, we would want the system to use this other additional premium letter, and we can select a separate letter here. At the way bottom, we have our letter defaults, where we can control the font size for the letterhead, the day's date on the letter, whether we want it to appear on the left or the right or in a detailed format. We can set a default number of days to reply, and we can set the font size for the addressee. You have a button here as well for cross-selling defaults. If we click on this, we can control the default lines of business that would be applicable on our cross-selling report, or when we're sending out bulk emails or prints using the cross-selling options. So here I can say that we're targeting all customers with this particular line of business, homeowners, but without this line of business, flood. And we can specify a date range to pull that information from, as well as the agency that they are assigned to. And at the way bottom, we have 3 buttons down here in regards to logos and invoices. We can select a default invoice that the system can generate. There's a couple different options to choose from here. We can select a logo for our letterhead or a logo for our footer on our letters as well. In order to do so, I would select one of the buttons, and then we can click the Select a Logo to Attach. Notice that again we would need a BMP image. .bmp is a bitmap format for our images to use as our logo. So I'm going to select a logo to attach, and again I can browse my computer for the specific image that I want to use. So let's say we select this image of the car, we'll say Open, and we can see that image displayed up here, so we get an idea of how our logo is going to be displayed in our letterhead. If we click to select a logo for the footer, we can again select a logo to attach. I'm going to use the same image. Again, it has to be a .bmp, and we can say OK. You also have the option to check this box if you want to use a text footer rather than a logo footer. And then I can indicate the text that we wish to have included. Our next tab over in our defaults is for the client screen. Again, we have some yes/no options for specific actions that we can tell the system to take or not to take, such as do we want the client screen total to include expiring policies? We can check this yes or no. Do we want to show a total on the client screen? Do we want to show any AR balance on the client screen? Do we want to allow users to add new items to the pop-up boxes in the client or policy screens? This one you'll most likely want to leave unchecked. If we check this box, it's going to give the ability for any user to edit any of the information that we had set up in the pop-up boxes earlier without having to go into the utilities. So they can be on a policy and they can type directly into the line of business selection rather than selecting an item from the drop-down list. This can create a big mess in your system if there's no consistency, but it is a good option if it's a very small office and you know that people are going to need that flexibility. However, if you're going to want to make sure that people are only using the setups that you have created in your utilities, you're going to want to leave this box here unchecked. Do not allow users to add new items to pop-up boxes in the client and policy screen. Below this, we can tell the system to add any new clients as prospects first, to disable messages after entering duplicate client based on the phone number or last name. So if we don't want the system to flag us that this could be a possible duplicate, we can turn that off. And the important note on a client screen, if we want that to pop up every time we go onto the client screen, we can keep this box checked here. Down below, we can specify if we would rather have our new clients added as personal lines or as commercial lines by default. And we can set up a client numbering system by clicking on the button below. Here I can enter a prefix, the next number, and the suffix value, and there's some additional information on how these values work. Basically, your prefix value and your suffix value are fixed, and your next number increases by 1 every time the new client is created. Our next tab over is defaults for the policy screen. Again, we have a couple of these yes/no options here to choose from. So we can tell the system to disable the message it displays after selecting a policy's line of business. We can ask the system to create a credit to the company after we enter the premium amount. And we can ask the system to jump to premium issued directly after we enter the policy number if we prefer. You can include the MVR cost to your agency if that's applicable, and we can set up a binder number just like we set up the customer number. Same rules apply here. The prefix and suffix are fixed values while the next number increases by 1. The binder number and the client number are not mandatory to have set up in your system. That's by preference. The box at the very bottom is in regard to producer commissions on the policy screen. We can enter a default amount of producer commissions that would be applied if there is no commission rule set up in your utility section for those producers, and we can enter the priority level for how the commission rules are going to be applicable, how they're going to be calculated. So if you have different commission filters controlling how those rules are going to be calculated for that producer, you can control the hierarchy of how those filters apply. And the last tab over is the defaults for your dashboard. For the policies expiring or the intents to cancel section, we can indicate that we want to sort this by date, policy number, line of business, or client name, and we can ask for ascending or descending order. Below we have auto report defaults. Here I can indicate the directory on my computer where I want my auto reports to save to when they run, and I can indicate how I want the file name to be laid out for those reports. Note the file name is going to be based on the date that the report was run. So you would see here an example of how that report is going to look when it's saved, the name of the report, and then the date range specified. If you want to limit the reports to only run on the computer they were created at, we can also check this box here. We can have the system automatically log somebody out after a period of inactivity. Here I can specify how long that period of inactivity is going to be. And if we want the QQEvolution Office Assistant to automatically start up whenever we log into the system, we can check this box here as well. That will complete the tabs that we have in the default section here. If we continue along the tabs at the way top, we should get through these in just a few more moments. The Client Maintenance tab is where we can do some system cleanup in regards to our inactive clients or prospects. You'll see down below here we have 3 radial buttons that we can choose from. The first one that's highlighted is to transfer expired clients. And basically this will do what it says here. We're going to take all of the active clients and make them inactive clients if all of the policies for that client have expiration dates or cancellation dates in the range that we enter here below. So we can specify a date range, and we can take all of the active clients that have canceled or expired policies in that date range, so they have no active or pending policies, and we'll move those active clients to inactive clients. Once I enter the date range, I can choose to either transfer the clients right away, or I can show a list of the clients who will be transferred first before I actually complete the process. The next button over is to delete your expired clients. So this will permanently delete any inactive clients from Evolution if all the policies for the client have expiration dates in the date range that we enter below. So again, we're entering a specific date range here, and we're going to take a look at all of the inactive clients that have expiration dates in that date range. They don't have any active policies of any kind. We're going to delete those from the system permanently. Again, you have the ability to show a list of these clients before we delete them, or to go ahead and delete the clients. And the last one over is to delete prospects. So this will permanently delete any prospects from Evolution that have been entered in the date range that we specify. So if I have a bunch of prospects from last year, I no longer need them in my system, I can enter in the specific dates. Again, I can show a list of those prospects before they are deleted, or I can choose to go ahead and delete those prospects. The three buttons down at the bottom of this screen here we can take a look at next. The Clear Dates option will allow you to clear any reminder dates that have already occurred. We can select which kind of reminder dates we are trying to remove, either memo reminders, bill due dates, or intent to cancel dates. So any dates prior to today's date, any reminders of these kind prior to today's date, we can tell the system to remove those reminders. The second option down is repair codes. If you have any damaged database files and you call into QQEvolution for help, they may end up providing you with a repair code, which you would enter into this section here after you click on this button. The last one below will allow you to restore any deleted clients that you have in the system. So I can click on this button here, and I can see a list of clients that have been recently deleted, and I can select to restore that client if I choose. It should restore most of the client policy and billing data for you at that point. If we go back up to our tabs at the top and we go over to the next one, Agency Info, this is just a screen of information. We can see our agency's information as it is set up with QQEvolution. If you need to change any of the information here, you can contact QQEvolution to do so. Note as well your QQ ID number down at the bottom. Whenever you contact us for a training or support, it expedites the process if you're able to provide the QQ ID number so we can pinpoint your account easily. The next tab over is for real-time inquiry setup. If you're going to be participating in any of the Ivan's real-time inquiry, you can get set up through here. You can contact our support department for any assistance with this setup. And our final tab is for restricting IP addresses. So if there are certain users that you do not want to be able to access the system from certain IP addresses, certain computers, like their home computer for example, you can enter in those IP addresses to restrict that access here. Now that's basically going to sum up everything that we wanted to cover in the utilities section. We went over all of the tabs along the top of the screen here, through all of the pop-up boxes and the system defaults. Remember, any areas that we breezed over we cover in more detail in a separate recording, things like commission rule setup, agency or carrier fee setup. And you can always access those recordings from our website. If we go back to the QQEvolution dashboard, you'll have quick links to training information, support, and other aspects of our company website over on the right-hand side from your dashboard. But remember, you can always go to QQEvolution.com. Thanks again, everyone, for your time.